Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Greetings, Algo artisans. Today is Sunday, February 9th. We're going to take a look at the charts for Bitcoin, Solana, EURUSD, GBPUSD, USDJPY, GBPJPY, SP500 Futures, Dow Futures, NASDAQ Futures, Gold, and Silver. Before we do that, we're going to take a look at the economic data that's coming out this week. Let's jump into it. All right, so Monday, not a lot going on. There was a bank holiday for the JPY over in Japan, so probably not a lot of action on the JPY pairs. Tuesday, we have Chairman Powell testifying, and that's going to be at 10 a.m. EST. Also, if you are trading the GBP at 7:15 a.m. EST, BOE Governor Bailey speaks. So anything USD or GBP wise on Tuesday is probably going to be great to trade after 10 a.m. EST, and before that, very dangerous. Wednesday, we have CPI, and that's the big one. CPI comes out 8:30 a.m. EST Wednesday morning for the US, and that's something that can push markets around across the board, whether it be stocks, crypto, or anything else. And then Fed Chair Powell testifies and talks again at 10 a.m. EST, which can also push things around on Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be tricky, might have a little volatility after 8:30 a.m. Every swing trade or day trade could be in trouble when Fed Chair Powell testifies. 9 p.m. EST, we have some inflation data coming out for New Zealand, GDP for the British pound at the European Open the next day. We have CPI coming out for the Swiss also right around that time, just after the European Open. Thursday, we have PPI, which actually could be very powerful as well. CPI tends to be more of what everybody watches. However, PPI, the producer price index, another inflationary metric, happens on Thursday at 8:30 a.m. EST and can push markets around, and that's all markets. Friday, we also have retail sales data coming out at 8:30 a.m. EST. So should be a pretty good week for trading, but up until Wednesday, things could get a little bit slow because of those type of data coming out. The market might be anticipating major stuff. Trump's in now, so everybody's watching this data with a new set of lenses. All right, let's jump into the charts. We're going to start with Bitcoin. I don't really have a lot of conviction this week on my predictions, and the reason is that we have the CPI, the PPI, we got Powell testifying, we got a lot of data coming out this week, and of course we have the Trump effect. So just like the last week or two with all of the tariff news and all kinds of stuff happening around the world, plus these data coming out, I'm just going to go ahead and predict what I think would happen as long as nothing terribly unexpected happens. As long as all the prints come out, the CPI, PPI, they come out as expected. Powell doesn't say anything crazy. These predictions I show you can be easily knocked out of whack if something unexpected happens. And that is true every single week, but especially weeks like this. Here we are looking at Bitcoin. You can see that I have just kind of a slow continuation of this move downward. There's a lot of pressure to the downside right now on Bitcoin. And I think we're going to see 75,000 more likely than we'll see 120,000. I could be wrong about that, and things could straighten out. Bitcoin just heads back up like everybody thinks it would. But a 30% pullback in a bull market is pretty normal, and we have not seen that, and that would pull price back to about 75, 74K. Not to say it's going to happen, but if I had to bet, if somebody said, hey, gun to my head, do you think Bitcoin is going to see 75,000 before it sees 120,000? My answer would be yes. That's the probability that I have, and I've looked into it, and that's what a lot of quantitative probability says as well. So for the moment, I think we're going to see Bitcoin slowly make its way down to the low 90s, and maybe, depending on what happens Wednesday, which is where this white line is right there, we might see Bitcoin break below and start to descend a little bit and have that bull market pullback that it typically has. There's always that possibility it doesn't, and that's why we have these other ideas that can happen as, say, Bitcoin heads up, or the Super Bowl has some crazy announcement that makes things really bullish or whatever, but this is the expected path. Slightly down and possibly a break below. Let's move on to Solana. Now, Solana has been pretty sideways, actually. Now, Bitcoin has been descending, and going back to, say, last week or 2 weeks ago, Solana has been heading down pretty steadily after the Trump pump, and it's come back down to where it was before that. But if you go back a little farther, and if you kind of zoom back to like November, Solana's been pretty relatively steady, staying between 180 and 270 for the most part. If Bitcoin does decide to level out, and if it decides to consolidate below 90K and find some type of equilibrium, we could see a bit of an alt season happen, like a pre-alt season, maybe the main one. Typically, the main alt season happens after Bitcoin tops out, and for a few weeks, all of the altcoins really go wild. But if Bitcoin does take a break and consolidates trades below 90,000, we might see Solana really do a lot. So right now, I expect it to go sideways, and if Bitcoin takes a hard move, Solana might be taken down with it, at least temporarily, but for now, this is the non-surprise move, right? Just kind of sideways into Wednesday, and that's going to be a lot of the charts we see today. So let's move on to the Euro, EURUSD. EURUSD has a little more bearish pressure than some of the other charts, so I do expect this bearish chop heading down, and it'll probably catch right at about $2.24. That's where you might see a bit of a bounce if it can make its way down that low. It might just go sideways for the week. It just depends on how volatile the market really is and whether or not we get any surprising comments from anybody, but this is just the path I expect to see in the case that no surprises happen. Let's go to the British pound versus the dollar, otherwise known as the cable. I expect sideways action, but a possible move down to this lower level. There is some support sitting at $1.2376. However, there's bearish pressure on the charts, so price really could dump into this lower area with a bottom at $1.2257. However, if there are no surprises, I expect price to hold above $1.2375. We'll see what happens with all the things we talked about before. Let's go over to USDJPY. A little more bearish pressure on USDJPY than other pairs. However, right now, this open is pretty bullish, so we might actually see a little bit of a move up, a little more than I expected when I initially drew this before the market open. But as it stands right now, we could see the USDJPY continue down towards 148.71. Now, there is a little bit of a chance we could see price rally back up to grab some liquidity before it heads down, and that would look something maybe like this, a move up to $1.5378. I just don't know if it has the juice to get there. There's a lot of bearish pressure on things. However, JPY, bank holiday on Monday, things can happen during bank holidays, right? So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the beast, GBPJPY. Similar to USDJPY for similar reasons. I expect sideways to down, but if you'll notice, we also had that strong open, a little bit stronger of an open than I anticipated as I initially drew this chart, not 30 or 40 minutes ago. I still think, though, that we're going to see sideways to down, and 187 is where we're expecting price to possibly bounce if it does head down. Always that chance, though, like I drew with the USDJPY, price could run up, in this case to about 190.30 JPY to the pound to grab some liquidity before it moves down. So that is possible, but again, this is based on no surprises, everything as expected, and in this environment, that's not very likely. Remember, I don't use these charts to really trade, I just use them to know which way the wind is blowing. That way I can zoom in and design my trades based on that kind of stuff. Let's move on to the SP500 Futures. ES1 here, strong open on the futures. Interesting look on a lot of the markets. It looks like the dollar is opening weak because a lot of the futures markets opened as I started this, and I had drawn these charts prior to starting this. So if the dollar is opening weak, that could just be sort of market open jitters. I still expect things to move as I originally drew them. It could just be that the market open is happening, things will even out. I expect sideways action with most of the indices into Wednesday when we get the CPI, and that's just what I expect. Remember, I'm only predicting out to Wednesday because of CPI. Once that data comes out, and especially after Thursday's PPI, I'm a little more comfortable talking about what I might see after that. If you want to see what that is, catch the live shows Tuesday through Friday, 8:30 AM EST. Let's move on to the Dow. Dow Futures, again, stronger open than I originally drew, probably due to a lot of the news events, could have something to do with the deal made with Israel. As far as Gaza is concerned, could be due to a lot of things. Whatever it's due to is not quite my concern. Paying attention to the algos and the charts is. And I do think, even though we have a wild open with a relatively weak dollar, things might even out, and I still expect sideways action into Wednesday. However, if the algos do indicate dollar weakness and indices strength, I could amend those pretty easily, and I will be doing that as I trade. Let's move on to the NASDAQ Futures. NASDAQ might end up piling up a little stronger than what I drew here, but for the moment, we'll just leave the drawings as is. I expect sideways action into Wednesday. The NASDAQ has been a little bit weaker as of late than the other indices, but again, I do expect quietness until Wednesday, with the exception of Powell saying something crazy on Tuesday when he talks. Let's go ahead and take a look at gold. Gold futures, I expect sideways to bullish, right? We might see new all-time highs. We saw them last week at 28.86 based on gold spot with Oanda. I think price is either going to go sideways in this consolidation that gold has basically created between 28.47 and 28.83 roughly. Price could bounce off of that or break above that and head up. And again, a lot of that's going to have to do with what happens with Powell and CPI and so on and so forth, but outside of any surprises, I expect sideways to slightly bullish. Let's take a look at silver. Okay, silver, I expect more sideways than bullish. And as a matter of fact, because of the dynamics of silver, of how silver tends to be held below $32, more or less artificially, I'm a little less bullish on silver than I am on gold. So silver probably will go sideways into Wednesday, but could break up or could break down. Either way, it's going to be, I think, a quiet week outside of any surprises up until Wednesday. Wednesday could get a little bit crazy. Tuesday has that possibility of getting crazy if Powell says something that's completely unexpected. Until then, I just follow the algos. I don't trade based on this data. I just use this data to know which way the wind is blowing, and I'm pretty darn good at it. If you want to know how I do this, if you want to be able to do this yourself, and if you want to be able to create your own custom trading method, your own algo, come on over to algofactory.tech. We'll teach you how to do that. And for a very limited time, it's at $49.99. We're actually going to double the price. Pretty sure that's what we're going to settle on, is twice the price at $99.98. As it stands now, we haven't done that yet. And anybody who gets in before we change the price gets to hold on to that price at $49.99 as long as you don't let that membership lapse. We're teaching people how to build algorithms, how to trade, how to extract money from these markets. It's what we do. We are extremely good at it. So please come to algofactory.tech, learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro. And we'll see you on Tuesday morning, 8:30 a.m. EST sharp. Thanks for watching.